Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition, we're going to be taking a closer look at what is unfolding in the CPP. So we call that CPP versus CPP, and of course, who benefits from a CPP implosion? The sitting president. So we say CPP versus CPP makes Weah laugh. Mr. Sharif, are you laughing? We want to welcome our viewers from across the globe. This is Dennis Jad, and we want to encourage you to invite a friend as we dive into this very important topic. I can assure you I have the best panel in online television. I want to welcome Mr. Mohammed Sharif, who's our political analyst. He's joining us from Philadelphia. Mr. Sharif, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
We also want to welcome from Monrovia, Wade Powell. Wade, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you.
We want to welcome the chief political analyst here on Focus on Liberia, Mr. Wilmot Cooney, who is CDC leaning. We want to stress that. And he's joining us from Philadelphia. Mr. Cooney, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Dennis.
Joining us for the first time on Tough Talking Thursday. He's been on other shows, but Mr. Gabriel Carter is joining us for the first time on Tough Talking Thursday. He co-hosts the FON Marketplace. That's our business and economic forum. He's here tonight to talk tough. Mr. Carter, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It started some time ago when there was disagreement between the chairman of the Liberty Party and the political leader. That snowballed into other things. Of late, we have seen other issues emanating from the CPP. That's the coalition that is collaborating political parties. What actually is happening in the CPP? Is the CPP on the verge of imploding? If that happens, who benefits? Who suffers the most? What's the role of LP, that's the Liberty Party? Because the Liberty Party and ALP are not feeding presidential candidates in the forthcoming 2023 elections. So what role is the LP playing? What role is the ALP playing? And I ask the question, is the LP playing the spoiler here? To delve into all this, let me get your opening statement. Mr. Sharif, what you make of what's happening in the CPP? Is the CPP imploding? Unmute yourself, Mr. Sharif.
I'm sorry. We do know that early 2019 that the four main political parties began some sort of conversation to amalgamate their forces towards the 2023 election. And these discussions culminated into the formalization of their agreement. And this is a loose coalition called the Collaborating Political Parties. And in April of 2020, they signed a framework agreement. And this framework agreement has recently been the bone of contention. And so they are, to answer your question directly, the CPP is imploding right now. So the synergy that once held the CPP together is dissolving very quickly. And nothing has been done. So we're left with the question of who's the adult in the room that will bring these guys together to focus. It's like this is real playground stuff that we're looking at right here. And so you ask another question, which is important. Is George Weah happy about this? I think George Weah.
We'll come to that, Mr. Sharif. We'll come to that. Let me go to Wade. She's in Monrovia, and she's very close. In fact, she's a member of the Liberty Party. I promise, Wade, we're going to do a separate show on the position of the Liberty Party. But for tonight, Wade, what's going on in the CPP?
Well, I think to answer that question, we first of all have to understand what the basis of the CPP was. And to paraphrase this, so I'll tell you exactly what is in the preamble of the CPP. Convinced that our coming together will fulfill the Liberian people's long-awaited alternative, the democratic governance, and determined to provide basic social services to our people. That's the basis of the CPP. That means that each political party that's a member of the CPP has a duty and a responsibility to perform in a manner that is in accordance with this mandate that's in the preamble. Um, you open the remarks by asking the question, is the CPP imploding? No, the CPP is not imploding. Any organization coming together with multiple people having multiple agendas and one from the board is going to have these sorts of challenges. I don't believe that the CPP is imploding right now. I believe that the issues that the CPP is having right now are issues that can be resolved. I think what will determine the strength of the CPP is the manner in which these issues are resolved.
Thank you. Let me go to Gabriel. Gabriel, what's your take? Is the CPP imploding? Who's wrong? Who's right?
Thank you for having me. I think the way I want to look at that question is exactly what the coalition was intended to do, right? Eventually, if you look at the framework, it says to eventually form a merger, right? So they formed this document, which outcome our party was supposed to have a merger. I don't know how that was going to happen, but that's the way I want to look at it. So if you look at it from a merger standpoint, right, that's the engaging document that's supposed to form the merger. Each party within that framework is supposed to do their due diligence. If I'm the ANC, I'm doing my due diligence on the three other parties, right? If I'm the LP, I'm doing my due diligence on the three other parties, right? You're supposed to look out for what's best for your constituents. Within that framework, right? After the due diligence, you set timelines, and within those timelines, you're supposed to have deliverables to get to that outcome, which is having the merger. But what is currently happening within the CPP, for lack of to not even go to the document itself of how it was written, is that it was left for interpretation. So each party, because there was not clear outcome as to the type of synergy that they need to benefit from, each party is interpreting as it's supposed to be, right? So with that being done, each party feeling their own candidate, that's what's causing this implosion that we're seeing right now. We know Liberian politics, how they can be, right? We're supposed to have deliverables, deadlines, what's going to happen with every period, and at the end of it, what's going to happen. Each party within that, right? There's three ways you look at this thing. You're supposed to have the worst case scenario. Each party is supposed to have a worst case scenario. In case all things go bad, what am I going to do? Are we exiting? How are we going to exit? Is that exit going to impact us if we're going to recalibrate? And you look at the base case. The base case is that if all else go as agreed within the framework document, this is what's going to happen. We're going to form that merger, put forth a party, put forth a candidate, and everybody within that coalition will support that candidate. Then you look at also the up case. The up case is that, hey, I'm bringing this merger thing to you guys. I want to field my candidate. So that's where we're all going to go to, right? But I don't think any of those parties within this framework actually even look at that. The
Yeah.
document within itself, it's left for interpretation. It's just vague, so I can interpret it any way I want to. It was poorly written, and
Yeah.
this is why each party is interpreting the way it is, and that's what's causing this commotion within
So,
the
so, so,
coalition.
so Gabriel, you're saying Hurry Bus Strasser is making the CPP to implode right now.
Exactly so.
Sure.
That's exactly what's happening.
Let me
Thank you.
go to Mr. Coney. He's the chief political analyst here. He's CDC leaning, so of course he will say all sort of thing about the CPP. But I'm going to still tease his analytical heart. Mr. Coney, what actually is going on in the CPP, and what do you think is responsible for that?
Well, there is a popular political doctrine. They say when your opposition are engaged in their own fire, sometimes it's best for you to stay out and just watch them, let it destroy themselves, let it battle themselves. But then is the issue with the CPP is what we said originally from its founding. This was an idea brought together by a group of politicians that, wanted to just remove George Weah from office. That's the motivation. The only thing that motivates that group is, let's remove George Weah from office. So the organization, everything is just like a knee-jerk reaction to the CDC government. The structure very much haphazard. There is no vision. There is no, my brother there tried to polish it in a way, but actually there are no defined pathways as to how these things were going to be achieved. And we raised those issues earlier, and what we will get from the CPP is, we just needed to make the announcement, other things will fall into place. And so this is what we have. It's another stain on us, the intelligentsia, that with all of our education, we can get together. And for almost 2 years now, we can even come up with a simple framework agreement that will foster unity among us first, that will bring about the display of democratic ideas among us first. We can't even do that, but yet and still we asking the Liberian people, telling the Liberian people that we are the alternative. So for me, this is not strange. It was expected. Haphazard reaction, haphazard organizations always produce haphazard results.
Thank you.
So, I don't have much to say. We just watching, whether they're imploding, whether they're not imploding. One thing is clear, that the CDC, the Coalition for Democratic Change, is strongly positioned to defeat any candidate that will come from the CPP. I mean, we are on strong grounds.
Thank you. So there
So
have been
let me just make one statement. I think he wanted us to leave out the CDC, but I think he has brought them in, so they have fair game to say
I'm
that,
glad
right?
that he's introduced them so
You're
they
right.
are fair.
thank you. And Call is going to join us shortly, so we wait that. But before that, let me go back to you. There are a lot of events leading to what we now think is the implosion in the CPP. There are a lot of things, starting with the election of Musa Hassan Bilete as chair of the Liberty Party, the clash between Yombli Kanga and Darius Dillon on one side, who once called Musa Bilete a Saul changed to Paul. I don't know. Based on what he's saying now, it might be going back to his Saul days. And then it went on and on and on. And now we have the Cummings walkout. We have the press conference and counter press conference. You have the decision of the and all that is happening. So let's look at this sequence of events happening within the CPP. Who or what is responsible? I go back to you again, Wade.
So once again, the description of the CPP as being imploding, I totally disagree with that description. The CPP is not imploding. However, to answer your question directly, while the issues of pathways designed to get us to the point of merger may not be spelled out, the pathway for the process of arriving at the standard bearer for the CPP is definitely defined. You have several things that are happening at the same time. And I want to separate the two because at the end of the day, there are two separate issues. There's the issues that are going on with the Liberty Party, and then there are issues that are going on with the CPP. So let me first address the issues going on with the Liberty Party. In January of this year, Liberty Party came back, went to convention, elected a new corps of officers, amended its constitution. The sole purpose for that amendment was to frame our constitution in a manner that was democratic and that required the voice of everybody at the table. and not to have any singular person being the decision maker in the Liberty Party. We came back from convention, and 6 months later, in around July, 7 months later, around July, questions started coming about challenging the Constitution and allegations about changes being made to the constitutions that were not approved. It's a simple matter. If you have a claim that something was done, it behooves you and the onus is on you to prove that it was done. And there are mechanisms within the Liberty Party that one must take advantage of before going to the NEC. Unfortunately, in our case, instead of taking advantage of the internal mechanisms to investigate this matter was brought to the public. Things like these happen in political parties all the time. Once again, I go back to the manner in which they are handled, and that is what causes some of these issues. Liberty Party prior to now has been a party where issues were discussed in-house and resolved in-house for the most part, thanks to the guidance of the late Councillor Charles Brumskin. Unfortunately, our issues have spilled out over to the public. But the crux of the matter here, when it comes to that particular issue in the Liberty Party, is one: was there an alteration to the Constitution other than what was agreed at the convention? That is the only issue at hand. There's no other issue. No matter how people try to muddy the waters, that is the only issue at hand. Now, some people have some issues with the Constitution and things that they would like to see in it. Well, the party also has a mechanism for if you want to review and make revisions to the Constitution. That is a separate issue. You cannot now say, because there are things in the Constitution that you would like to see or you would like to have seen in the Constitution that was not included in there, that you want to have those things included in the Constitution through the back door. This is what we are saying no to.
Okay.
On the issue of the CPP, I believe the ANC has sufficiently answered the question on Cummings' walkout. I'm not here to answer why Cummings walked out, why he didn't walk out. They put out a statement on that.
Right. But what do you make of the walkout?
I'm going to tell you about the walkout from, not the walkout. I'm going to tell you about the issues that emanated from that meeting that caused the walkout and the Liberty Party's position on that.
Okay.
But within the CPP, there are organs that are the authorized bodies to make decisions. The four political leaders sitting down at a table and having a conversation is not one of those bodies that are recognized in the framework document. And therefore, while we encourage engagement between the four political leaders, we encourage them having these conversations because it's a manner in which they can take their similar thoughts and go back to the individual political parties and discuss with them. You cannot take a discussion from that forum and try to make it seem as though it is an official decision-making body of the CPP. It simply is not. And Liberty Party's position on that matter is simply this: whatever discussions were had at that table are not official. The Liberty Party's position, official position on anything, can only be gotten after consultation within the party and an agreement in the party. And therefore, this issue of the extension of the Liberty Party chairmanship of the CPP, that's not something that we should be learning about in the news. This issue about that is now coming on regarding this black voting thing, no, that's not Liberty Party is not supportive of that. This issue of who is supposed to have these conversations, it is clearly stated that the CPP National Executive Committee is the executive body of the CPP. The roles for the National Advisory Council are clearly written. It's stated. The roles for the CPP NEC are written, and the roles for the CPP National Assembly is written. It's very clear. Anybody wanting to jump over and into the other person's role is simply wanting to cause confusion.
Thank you,
There's
Weah.
no body as a political leader group within the CPP.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a lot to unpack there, but we want to welcome Carl Famulet as our policy analyst. He's here. Carl, welcome to Focus on Labrador. You meet us, as we would say in, I come from between Yakipa and Guinea. So in Bosu, we say you meet us. So what we say now, okay, series of events unfolding in the CPP, started with the Liberty Party, the black voting, the Cummings walkout, the coronation of JNB as party standard bearer, or 6 years ago, he was ordained as the standard bearer, and that continues until 20. All these things happening.
Right.
Do you see this as the CPP implosion? And if so, what's happening here and why?
So, I mean, I don't know what you mean by an implosion. I think that the CPP framework is one of the most selfishly motivated documents I've ever seen in a political setting. Okay, so the first thing is, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not representing any organization. I don't represent the Unity Party today. I don't represent Save the State today. I don't represent any of my friends or associates today. I speak for myself. So y'all want to lynch somebody, y'all come lynch me alone. I'm an adult. Nobody pays my bills, well, except my husband. He has no objection to what I'm about to say. The first thing is, it's interesting that the selection process for the presidency or the candidate for the presidency is coming under attack when every single candidate selection process has been done in a very similar, if not worse, manner, less democratic manner. Nothing has been done to uphold the process of democracy. And the candidate that claims to be this upright, clean hands, I've come to reform you savages who don't know how to do anything. I know better. I worked in the corporate world. He sure went down there and joined in, didn't he?
You mean
it signed off on everything. So my issue I have right now is, I'm just going to say what I have to say. You know, this is hypocrisy. And no disrespect to anyone, but from the very first candidate CPP put out, those decisions were made in an undemocratic manner and without any respect to the possibility that someone else may want to run. So I've talked about this before, and the purpose of democracy and how bad voter suppression is. What is even worse than voter suppression is candidate suppression. When you close a process so no one else can run, except you, the gatekeeper, say they should run, that is the greatest crime against democracy. Creating a system or a process in which you close out other people within your organizations from being able to raise their hand and utilize the organization that they belong to aspire to hold office. This is classic white-collar crime. These kinds of things are punishable in the United States, you know, by prison time.
Carl, don't you think you're taking this too far?
I'm going to
I was going to push back on that a little bit. Like, you have to be.
When you say too far, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by too far? Where am I taking it? I'm speaking what I know. How is what I know too far?
You said this is white collar crime. This is
of course it's white collar crime to close a process. How is that not wrong? And
How
it's not
was it
only
closed?
CPP.
How was it
Let
closed?
me say this. It's not only CPP. This is how things are done. So the people who are doing it think it's normal. They think it's normal. They don't do any, this is how it's been done. So if you come in now and you say, listen, this is not okay. You have to, the whole point of democracy is to have the majority make a decision. And if you thwart that process, you are violating the democratic principles that the country is founded upon. So even within your own organization, if you're reaching out, I mean, I don't know much about CDC, but I'm pretty sure that they did not have a transparent primary either. That's just how people do things in Liberia. And it's not to pick fuss on CPP, but for us to act shocked now that someone has decided to pledge all their delegates to a candidate, how is that shocking? Show me the precedent where things have been done better, when a candidate has ever been selected correctly. Show me that process.
Thank you. Oh, that's the challenge there, Mohammed. Show me a process where we don't know the standard bearer even before the party is formed. You're muted. Mr. Sherry, unmute yourself, please.
So listen, I have to agree with Cole again on this one. From Liberian, Liberian history, right? We go back to earlier times to now. What is, and her question is, correct. What is, show me a process. Show me a time in which, there has been a candidate that was picked in a primary. Like, you have candidates going to primary, like in the United States. There has been, I don't know of any time where there have been a primary where you have a candidate selection, right? So you have individuals who will go and form a political party, and already they are declared as the political leader. Some of them declare themselves as the vision leader. It doesn't matter how you call yourselves. That is not a democratic process. So already the leader is already known, the standard bearer, the person who's going to stand for this party in a general election is already known from day one. So that's not a democratic process. So this is nothing new. That being said, my thing is, if the collective opposition is trying to market to us a new political dispensation, and this is all they're showing us. So what is the difference between you guys in the collective opposition and the God right now in the executive mansion? Or should I say at the foreign ministry, because he has abandoned the executive mansion for a long time now for some superstitious reason. So I don't know what change there is going to be, because you don't have the opposition telling us their vision. They're not communicating anything different from what we're seeing now. What you have is constant bickering. And you look at the Uri versus Cummins bickering. Uri said, well, he's not too wealthy. He can't be president. I mean, come on, right? This is playground stuff. And it seems to me that Uri is jealous, is envious of Cummins, the new guy coming on the block, who's, taking all of his territory. And so now he's going into this gutter. He's accusing Cummins of tampering with the framework agreement. And meanwhile, Uri has no evidence to corroborate his claims. And so on we go. So this is not really a democratic process. So I am saddened right now to see that these are the guys who are running to succeed George Weah. So what is the difference? My plea is there has to be a difference. You have to be different from the guy that's sitting in the executive mansion right now. There has to be something different. There's nothing different about the guys that you see, right? So I think that what's going to happen is, one of the things that we will be talking about is the spoiler. I think is Benani Uri is positioned to be actually be the spoiler, because if Mr. Boycott is somehow selected as the CPP standard bearer, he's probably going to carry Ms. Conga Lawrence as his running mate. And, I think that Uri is going to back out of the CPP and endorse George Weah. And if Cummins wins the nomination, you definitely know that Mr. Uri is gone, because the two men, Uri and Cummins, really, really, really hit each other. And so this is really a recipe for disaster. So the point about implosion is implicit. It is correct. And these things are based on, this implosion is really based on the undemocratic way that the candidates are selected and the undemocratic manner they are going about trying to gain the highest office in the land. They are running to become the president of the Republic of Liberia, not some class president, not a president of Waplo Institute, not a president of Bishop Julius High School, my alma mater. They are running to become president of the Republic of Liberia, the highest position in the land, but we're not seeing anything different, and it's a disgrace. We need a new political dispensation. This is not it. This is not it.
Thank you. Cole, if you can move on your side a little bit where you have.
On the side like this?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Let me Gabriel, you've been trying to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there was few things I wanted to push back on that you know because there hasn't been a history of a democratic process in Liberia in how you know elect our leaders. That doesn't mean we cannot start somewhere. That doesn't mean we cannot formulate a coalition or an idea to actually begin that process. So to push back on that, to say because it's never been done before, I think that is kind of a stagnant way of thinking about things. It's just like you're in a corporate world. You somebody go in, they want to change processes, and you say, oh, we've always been doing it this way, so that means we're going to stick to it. Well, there's you have to be progressive. We haven't had a democratic process. I agree with you. If you look at the history of Liberia, nothing has been democratically perfect, as we want to call it. No democracy is perfect, but because there hasn't been, this is why I think that coalition was actually formed. I would agree with you guys that the document itself, the way it was written, it's just a recipe for what is actually happening. I agree with you that, but that does not mean it cannot be perfected within as we go along to make it happen. That doesn't mean it cannot be perfected as we go along, as we go along. And this whole notion that Alex, this ANC coming in and saying that he is the clean hand, that I agree with you. That was, from a strategy standpoint, that was a disaster. I don't think if I were the ANC, I would not go associate with anybody within those other parties. Not the Liberty Party, not the Unity Party, definitely not the ALP Party. If you look at the character within those party, you look at their history, you, everything within that would tell you that this is what you need to stay away from. But I understand why he did it. That was just from a strategy standpoint, and I think it's just a fumble from the strategy standpoint for going within those guys.
Let
And
me
I think
let me push on that a little bit. That's what's wrong with those people, or how is Mr. Cummings better? And that's why Carl was speaking to that. Carl, that this is hypocritical.
let me get to that. Let me get to that before I yield. Right.
Right.
So without trying to go too deep into these guys, the Unity Party, you know the history, right? We know the history of the previous government. We know the ALP. We know who's their standard bearer, right? The same thing with the Liberty Party. Sorry, without there's little bit of tennis character in there. If I'm the ANC, I'm Alex. I'm coming with supposedly a stellar corporate background, a stellar history of doing things in the country. I wouldn't want to get associated with this guy. I think the reason why he got, he actually took on to that is because how he performed in 2017.
Right.
Because you see that, you say, okay, I didn't do too well. Let me form a coalition. Maybe it will give me a little bit of clout, win some share, and then pull out of it. But I think that was the biggest mistake that actually happened.
Are you suggesting you should pull out now?
It should happen right now. That's do the damage control, pull out, and recalibrate and take this thing by
Thank you.
himself.
And Mr. Kune, you said you are going to watch. So let me go to Wade.
It doesn't mean I can't say anything.
So, sorry guys, I had a little internet problem there for a minute. So, the last 5 minutes I was gone, but I stopped off where Mohammed was speaking. But I want to go back to what Cole said.
Right.
As far as her description and analysis of the political space in Liberia, I 100% agree with her on it. The political space in Liberia is a toxic space. However, we all know that when you are in the business of effecting change, you have to meet the person, thing, idea, whatever it is, where they are. So this is where Liberia is. We cannot change where Liberia is. And we're also not going to be able to change this space overnight. Learned behavior is not changed overnight. And so we are here and we now say, okay, we've made all of these mistakes in the past. We've done all of these things the wrong way in the past. We have said we want to come together now to start doing things the right way. Everything has a beginning, but you cannot say that you cannot continue saying that you want to change the way things have been done in the past. And you put it in writing that this is what you want to do and this is your objective, but then your behavior remains the same. What we in the Liberty Party are saying, especially given the fact that we really don't have a big fish to fry in this, considering that we're not putting up a standard bearer candidate, it makes our job a little bit easier to be the gatekeepers. Right. To make sure that what was agreed to, however flawed it is, that what was agreed to is what is followed. The rule is the rule, the law is the law. You do not stop in the middle of the game to change the goalposts. Now, this issue of framework, document, interpretation, and so forth, this is a document that we have been operating under for 16 months. It begs the question, if someone is just now questioning the validity of this document, what does that say about your leadership ability? What does that say when you are put in charge of the country? Are you going to wait for 2 years later to say, oh, wait a minute, that document I signed 2 years ago, I made a mistake? No, it doesn't work that way. And if for any reason you see that maybe there was a flaw in the reasoning that this document came to be, there's a process by which you can have an amendment. Follow the process and see if everybody at the table, because now everybody at the table agreed to this from the beginning. So to change anything, everybody at the table has to come together and agree again. It is not about throwing out accusations to say, oh, the document is not the same document, when you have provided zero specifics on where the documents are different.
Right. And you're talking about ALP.
I'm talking about ALP. And okay. So when you start these sorts of conversations and you start these sorts of allegations, it leads to one thought, that you are trying to muddy the waters to devalue the institution. And those kinds of conversations only really start coming out when people start to see that the way they have been used to doing things, this document no longer allows them to do that. So they're stuck. They don't know how to move forward.
Carl, just before
can I come in now?
Perfectly said.
But let me get something clarified from Wade. Why is the LP not putting up a candidate? And if the LP has no candidate, does it really make them stronger or a little irrelevant?
It's not about, listen, the space that we're operating in right now is not about, you see, Liberia first. When people say Liberia first, we understand what it means, right? If you are in a situation like Liberty Party is in a situation, and you look at the situation that Liberia is in, and you look at the challenges that we have, and you look at the people that are in the space, and you consciously make a decision to say that even though I know that I do not have a candidate that is prepared to take on this task, I must put up a candidate. Liberty Party decided not to make that decision, to ensure that if we were not certain that we were ready to take on the task, that we would not put up a candidate.
Yeah, thank you. Let me go to Mr. Cooney, CDC Pape.
Listen, look, I mean, I agree with most of the points the panelists here made, from Kou, from Weah, everybody. But this is the thing. I don't know whether the CCP is imploding or not. But there are some crucial issues that will make that determination in the future. And somebody made reference to hypocrisy, deception, and other things like that. It is always like that in our Liberian setting. When we get together, we don't want to be honest, we don't want to be truthful. The biggest battle in the CPP is the selection of the presidential candidate of the CPP. That is the battle. So the main issue that is driving the division right now, because Mr. Cummings cannot tell me that whatever observation he's making, he just discovered that. But the major issue that is driving that division right now is this pledged delegate thing versus unpledged delegates. Because I want to believe in Mr. Cummings' mind, he thinks he had the ability to present himself and sell himself to the assembly of CCP delegates. CPP delegates. And from that assembly, he was very confident that he would emerge. But if the issue becomes pledged delegates, if we now got to be swearing affidavits and everybody, let's say if it is so say one, so say all, let's put it that way.
Yeah, the black vote.
The black vote.
So that's not what black vote means, but
then Mr. Cummings has no future, to emerge in that kind of scenario. Because if the United Party come with their pledge vote, and ALP come with their pledge vote, and assuming nobody knows what the Liberty Party is, but even a crossover of any of their people to that party, Cummings is out. This is what is driving Mr. Cummings. And that begs the question, like some of his own supporters been asking, Mr. Cummings, at what point did you become aware of these egregious violations that is now making you to walk out? We saw what took place in Nimba with that one way. Mr. Cummings' own ANC, they investigated. According to them, there were very serious violations of both the CPP framework and democratic guidelines. But Mr. Cummings, at the time, said for the sake of unity, you are accepting that result. You look at even the first trial in Cape Mount involving Simeon Freeman. For the sake of unity, you are accepting that result. For the sake of unity, you're being accepting all kinds of violations. So the unity now becomes a threat when his own self-interest is involved. This is the question people are asking. You keep on the Liberian political scene and say, we can't do the same thing over and over and expect different results. What were the mechanism that selected Taylor Ure as the candidate for the CPP to run in Looking Down? What was the mechanism used that selected Abraham Darras DeLong? So you accepted all of these things.
Yep.
But now you're looking into the future. The pledge or black delegate, whatever it is called, but for me, I just want to call it so say one, so say all. So say one, so say all will consume you. Even in that scenario, there is no possibility of you even emerging as a vice presidential candidate.
So you're saying the other people children time for Cummings to bring a child to be eating?
And that's what I've been saying about Mr. Cummings all along on this show. If you roll the tapes, that's what I've been saying. This is not a sign of leadership. And then the other thing that is responsible for the problem is some of the points like the great panelists make here. Look, Dennis, Liberians, we feel that laws are not adequate to protect us. Laws are not adequate to bring peace. Laws are not adequate to bring unity. So we always made it for the sake of peace. When the Liberian mentality is for the sake of peace, let's abandon the legal arrangement and go do something by ourselves. We always found peace and unity outside of the law. You got these political leaders. They constitute themselves to some kind of permanent job now. They're supposed to be political leaders. They, like the sister said, they're not in a framework document, but they will meet every day, they make their decision. A lot of political leaders, something that in Liberia has become a permanent title.
Yeah.
I'm hearing some people say if you get it from one convention, you remain there until 6 years again, other people can't run. It's the same thing the sister was talking. The political space has to be free up for people who have the ambition for them to explore. But if we're taking one candidate from one convention to the other, that's a problem. And this is the surprising thing for me, because I was of the view that any of the political leaders shouldn't have a problem winning their own party primary. They shouldn't have that problem. I don't expect Mr. Boyka to have a problem in Unity Party. I don't expect Mr. Cummings to have a problem in ANC. So where is this idea of making the old man a candidate in a living room? Not even to the party headquarters. Go to the living room and say the old man a candidate. This is political suicide. It's malfeasance. Because if you convene a assembly of Unity partisans, they will elect Boyka. The question of, we already know the candidate. Yeah, look, political parties always have their leaders. So you will know the name of the leader. But for the sake of God, create some appearance of democracy. It can't be because we know the leader now, so we're just closing everybody out.
Thank you.
And this is why it's happening. So for me, I think Mr. Cummings it will be in his political interest. I've always claimed not to be an advisor. He doesn't have a feature in our CPP. Let him go do his own thing. Let's stop all this noise so that the Liberian people can get the kind of political contest they want. Because the confusion, it will not only be the CPP that will be the loser, the Liberian people will be the loser.
And
I support the CDC, but I want a vibrant, competitive political space. Because I believe that we can withstand any challenge.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that leads me to my next question, which is, there are a lot of things going on in the country. We've been seeing dead bodies. You know, people are talking about ritualistic killing. Give me 10 human heads. I want 1,000 cows and all that. And with all these things, it looked like the CPP is consumed in its own imbroglio. Everything is, they are infighting. And so the issue of the Liberian people is put on the back burner. Carl, is CPP ignoring the plight of the Liberian people?
So, Dennis, I think it was very unfair that you cut me off before I made my point, and now you
What? I thought you ended.
No, it didn't end, because you can't have me midstream and then people misconstrue my point. So I beg you, let me use my segment to clarify a couple of things.
Go ahead.
Because that other topic is not my area. My area is policy. And so I do want to clarify a few things. First of all, the CPP, from the very first candidate that they put up against Josephine Francis, the selection process was what we call in public policy, there's laws against that. It's anti-competitive behavior, where a couple of people get together and close the process. They did this from the inception of the CPP. I was there at the very beginning, objected to this. A few of us objected to this even in writing and said, hey, you cannot just randomly select people to run for office based on something that you all decided at a table. This has to be corrected. We repeated this over and over again. Cornelia Chokba Kura, Talia Yuri, Darius Delon, everybody was just picked because so-and-so is that my time. And interestingly enough, we talk about for the sake of unity. It was not for the sake of unity, but for the sake of reciprocity. Meaning when it's my turn now, people are not going to come back and argue. So for example, there's two situations. Nimba, Ta Wongbe, these are the people that were pushing this anti-competitive process so that they would have an advantage over everyone because there'd be no competition. Everyone wanted to just ride on a white ballot. So when Ta went to Nimba, Edith Gonglo got up and fought and said, hey, this is wrong. You all need to make sure that we have a primary or some kind of process for selecting. They came up with this voter perception survey. And that's the other thing. Political science is an academic discipline. It's not something that you send amateurs to structure. Voter perception surveys are used. I use these surveys with the work that I do for the state of Georgia. Voter perception surveys are used to advise policymakers on where polling places should be, what kinds of accommodations people need, what people think about the democratic process, how candidates are going to market themselves. They're not used to select a candidate. These guys are just making up stuff as they go along. And they have access to people who have the knowledge base to structure and say things correctly. And they're not utilizing that. And we have been repeatedly telling them, people that work in Cummings' office, people that work in Boykai's office, we have been advising them for 2.5 years. They refuse to do the right thing every step of the way. And this is why I said what I said. This idea that we're going to sit here and act like Cummings isn't Liberian and he didn't have his upbringing in his formative years in the same toxic environment, there is no way a person who was raised in a different environment, it's like putting a frog in hot water, which is what happened to a lot of us that didn't grow up in Liberia. You jump right out. And I still am not used to that situation. The fact that this man was able to come and just merge with everyone and just go along, get in the reins, support Talia Yuri, even though Amos 12 was far better of a candidate for that district, they sidelined him and they denied the Liberian people all of their options. They denied the Liberian people all of their options. That is my message. And all of them agreed to deny the Liberian people of all of their options because they wanted to be, the two of them want to be president, and they want to also deny the Liberian people of all of their options so that they're the only two competitors. This is what we call anti-competitive behavior. And in America, if Coca-Cola does this, it's a crime. If you do this working for any corporation in the United States, it is a crime. Look it up. But in Liberia, it's normal. But those of us that know that it's not normal say, hey, this is not really correct. We might not have a specific law against it, but it's highly unethical. And it goes against democracy. We cannot continue this way. And they ignore you and continue anyway because why? They're looking for reciprocity ahead. They're looking for payback. They're looking for their return on their data investment. And that is why we are where we are. So this idea that, oh, he should leave CPP because he's better than the people, I don't buy it.
Mr. Carter, do you buy it? And while you think about that, look at my question again. The CPP was the hope, or have been the hope of the Liberian people when it comes to replacing President Weah, who, from what I see, is not doing a good job. But from what we see now, is like the CPP is so consumed with this internal fight that they are no longer fighting for the Liberian people. They are no longer calling the government, holding the government accountable of all the murders taking place in Liberia, for instance. Are they selfish now? They're not talking about Liberia. It's about who becomes president. Mr. Carter.
Yeah, and there's certain parts, certain things, statement I would like to agree with Cole on in terms of the anti-competitive practices. Yes, it is a crime. Whatever you do, whether it's in the corporate setting or in political setting, it is a crime. But in order to to unless something is a crime, you have to also show evidence of that happening.
I got
So
evidence. I'm prepared to show evidence. Trust
you
me.
have to bring something as evidence of that happening, and I think that will be
All right, I'll bring it
it would
right now.
distract us from what the question that is actually being posed here. This is the case that I would like to make, and I would say this broadly. I think, myself included, and everybody, all the youth, or whether you're youth or older person in Liberia, when the CPP came together, it represented what was supposed to be the alternative. It's supposed to be hope, right? 3 years we've seen what was happening in the country. It's supposed to represent something different, right? So when you see, this is something that I don't think, if it's been done on the level and the scale at which this was supposed to be done, it hasn't been done before. So when we saw that, we saw, okay, this is refreshing, right? You see full body of coalition political parties coming together to say this is what we want to do, right? And I will go to what I said earlier. Within that time, it formed in 2019, right? It was 4 years or 4.5 years to election, right? I think we're probably 2 years, 4 months removed from that now, right? You're supposed to have deadline. if you're coming in to say this is what we want to do, you're supposed to say by maybe 2 years in or 2 years in, we should have a candidate to, a year and a half to election. We should have an economic framework that's going to govern that coalition, right?
So what does that tell you?
That's what I'm getting to. I will say that before I yield, right? You're supposed to have timeline, framework, and give yourself enough time to go against the sitting party that is currently in place, right? But again, that never happened. And again, because of too many, chiefs, no Indians, right? Everybody want to feel their own candidate, right? Everybody want to feel their own candidate, and because everybody want to feel their own candidate, it becomes like this. Everybody playing poker with card held close to their chest. You don't want to reveal what you're doing. So when it gets to a place where one person reveal what they're doing, it becomes like this infighting that is happening. I would say this as well. One thing, another mistake, if you look at the party document, they talk about their social media presence, right? You're supposed to have a body set up that's supposed to do the communication on social media or whatever form of communication. We have individual from different party just spewing things on social media, saying, "Oh, this person will be nominated. This person will declare president." You're causing confusion within yourself by not controlling your surrogates or your constituents. By them, it's like Donald Trump running campaign. He declared himself winner before the elections even as exhausted. Right? That's part of the problem. But as far as this whole coalition goes, I would say this, and I yield. Right? ANC or whoever, ANC needs to pull out. They need to break it up because I know it's not going anywhere. Everybody know this thing is not going anywhere, right? This coalition is going. It's like a merger going bad.
But why
Two.
ANC though? Why are you not calling on UP to pull out?
Don't mind. Because they said they're still trying to press that
Can I
hide behind a chunk rock and pretend it wasn't you nonsense.
can I end? Can I
Yeah,
yield?
go ahead. I mean, why are you not
Dennis,
calling
I
on
just sent
UP?
you the evidence he was asking for.
I said the ANC because that's I don't know a lot more about the other party. I know they can. I don't know a lot more
I mean,
about the other
but
party.
what is your standard when you say the ANC should pull out based on what? That you're not calling this UP to pull out as well?
Well, they can pull out, but I think the reason why I say Alex or the ANC should pull out because fundamentally, I absolutely believe they have a better chance of if they go alone, right?
That
Take
got
what
you.
you have, they go alone, they have a better chance of getting that presidential candidate nomination than staying within that CPP. Now you can pick any other party within that coalition, right? You can pick any other party within that coalition. I can pick them apart and tell you exactly reason why I don't think they will get it. But that's the reason why. Because Alex is different. They're forming that coalition. They're forming that pact to say, this guy is different.
How is he
If
different, please?
Yeah,
can I continue?
yeah. Please wrap it up. I want to give
Oh,
Wade
okay.
chance because
All right.
Wade,
So
we don't. She's we're running against time with her.
I would take less than a minute. Alex is different because he doesn't. He's not. He never been anything in corruption in our country, right? That's one. Two, this is somebody with impeccable corporate record. And now I hear the argument where people can make and say, oh, you can't compare politics, how people do politics to cooperation. I will beg to different, and I can put them side by side with you on a different on a different segment to go over that, right? This is somebody with an impeccable record. Yes, in 2017, he may have came, what is it, third or whatever. I think he could have taken that, continue doing what he's doing, right? Instead of being trying to behold himself with this CPP and taking that same effort that he's doing right now and continue to do what he do and still do better, definitely be able to get the nomination. And this is why I think he's different. Let's go to the Unity Party. Look at I think the Unity Party within itself killed Liberia, and George Weah is just being the undertaker for that country right now. I was just there. I was just there. I was just there two. I was there 2 weeks ago, right? In 2011, I was there too. 2019, I was there. Like besides Sinkhole, the only you step out of that country, you step out of Sinkhole. Everything in that country is we are primitive, right? how can you associate yourself with somebody who's ran our country for that long, right? Who's been in country, who's was the leader for that period of time. The same thing with the United Party. I mean the ALP party. I mean, we know the history of their political leader. You know, we know we all know his history. The same
All right.
thing with the I would say this before you. We know the same
Yeah.
thing with the Liberty Party. There are some individual that with sketchy character. If I'm looking at all of that from initial standpoint, the next thing I'm the thing I'm thinking about is what am I gaining from them? What synergies am I building by forming a coalition with them? They're just going to tarnish my reputation domestically and on an international level if I do get that nomination. So those are the first thing I would have thought about before even forming a coalition. And I think this is the time they need to move out and take the damaged country and work with what they have.
Thank you. Let me go to Water. You cover a lot of grounds. I don't want to go in that direction because it will be our unity ANC versus the rest of the CPP. Water, I know our time on your side is not, so I want to give you a chance.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of the analysis that Gabriel is making right now are analysis that should have been made prior to the decision to enter into the CPP. A lot of what he's talking about is spilled milk. We're here now. One of the things that we must remember is that the CPP in and of itself, the idea of the CPP in and of itself was a very aggressive idea. Juxtaposing it with the political space that we are in. And therefore, we must understand that accomplishing 50% of what the CPP stood intended on accomplishing would be, for me, in my mind, success. When we started this conversation, I started it by reading the portion of the preamble of the CPP document. And while some people want to have the conversation that the mandate of the CPP is to remove the George Weah government,
It's not.
It's not. That is not the mandate of the CPP. While I would love to see, and I will do everything possible to work towards removing the George Weah government because it's ineffective, and I don't even understand why Wilma is even putting his mouth in our CPP position. Yeah, of a situation we have.
Wow.
At the end of the day, the premise of the CPP, is to provide a viable democratic alternative.
Exactly.
So it's not about winning. It's not about a political leader that gets to be the SB. It's not about any of it. The first way in which you exercise democracy is by following the rules that you lay out. Even if if the rules do not address every single thing and there are flaws, the ones that are addressed and are laid out, if you are not willing to follow those laws, you are essentially saying that you're not willing to follow democratic principles. And this is where I come from in this.
And if I can interrupt you for a minute, Wade, because you talk about the purpose of the CPP. I don't know if you read it. If you read the framework, I know you did, but it clearly states the purpose for them coming together is to present a single ticket.
Yep.
No more, no less.
A merger.
Exactly, but
right?
Not a merger, but a
so the point here of coming together is to remove Josh.
No, Dennis.
It's to remove Josh Weah.
Let's not mix up the issues. That's an objective of the alliance. That's one objective.
Right.
I am looking at the preamble. Go to the preamble. Which exactly, and it says there.
I'm looking at the objective.
Coming together will fulfill the Liberian people's long-awaited alternative to democratic governance. Before you get to Article 4, you go to the preamble. The preamble is what sets the basis for the CPP.
Yep.
I stand to remain that document was poorly written.
Those things that you're talking about
are poorly written.
But your corporate giant signed it in ink.
I
Dennis,
stand to remain.
He
It's
signed it.
I
He
mean,
did.
as
can I
analysts,
come in?
No,
junior
I
level
didn't let him.
analysts
I
could have
saw
done a
it
better
again.
job writing a better
Well,
document.
I have not yielded yet. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
let
go
Weah
ahead.
finish.
Sorry, Watkins. Sorry, Watkins. Sorry.
I
Go ahead.
don't want us to get into a conversation or bring this conversation down to the issue of candidates. That's not the source of the problem. The issue of candidates at this point is a manifestation of the source of the problem. The source of the problem is an inability or a refusal. And I hope that it is simply a refusal and not an inability. But it is an inability or refusal to live by the law, to exercise democracy.
Yep.
That is the source of the problem that we're having right now. It is the source of the problem in the CPP. It is the source of the problem in the Liberty Party. Now, every individual in Liberia right now, nobody should kid themselves. Everybody in Liberia right now has their preferred candidate. That's irrelevant to the issue of democracy. As an individual, it is my responsibility to go and lobby for, promote whoever the candidate that I choose to support. But that is secondary to my responsibility and duty as a citizen of this country to put democracy first. So let's not confuse the two issues here. There's two separate and distinct issues. Liberia first, democracy first, and Joseph Boyka and Alex Comey and whoever else, George Weah, whoever else second.
Can I come in?
Wait, no,
Absolutely.
I thought what they said she was going to, it was late, she was going to, but she talking like no sleep in your eyes.
No, let her make her point. She's
We,
correct.
we wake
Did
her up.
that
We
not
wake,
wear
we
how
wake
much
her up.
She
No,
got to stay, Mohammed. She got to stay.
I want to make Mohammed come first because what they already told you to.
I'm here now. I'm here. I'm going to stay throughout because I really want to make sure that we separate.
She want to make sure Carter drop more bombs. She gotta keep me. Her sister gotta keep me in check a little bit.
Mohammed, nobody has answered my question.
At the end of the day, though, Cole, I think from the standpoint of the premise from where we're coming from, you and I are on the same page.
Of course.
We differ
Yeah.
on some specific issues,
Yeah.
but the premise that we're coming from is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, Mohammed,
I'm on the same page with Paul too.
nobody has answered my question now. Where does this leave the Liberian people when the CPP is just consumed with its own infighting?
Look, Dennis, and I'm going to try to answer the question because I'm not tied to the apron string of one of these political parties, right? So, what you have, let's look at the composition of the CPP for those who believe in realistic change. So, let's examine some of them, and I'm not going to go into the details of it, right? But let's look at some of them. Let's look at Euro, for example, right? Do you think that Euro is going to bring change to Liberia? Who here believes that Benoni Euro is going to bring realistic change to Liberia? Thank you. That's the point. Who believes that Joe Boyka, great statesman, but by his own admission, he has been a parked car for 12 years. He was a parked vehicle for 12 years. And so this vehicle is not able to move right now. So I don't think, because if it can't move, then there should be some adults in the room right now to put these guys together and show them the way that you all are missing the point. The point is not for us to bicker among ourselves. So just going back to that point real quick.
But there's no adult.
There aren't any adults in the room right now. So Joe Boyka, who believes that
he's going all adults out?
Who believes that he's going to bring realistic change to Liberia, right? And then Cummins, the new guy on the block, right? And he's supposed to be, the guy who will come in. As I said last time, he may be better prepared, but do you see him communicating any vision of his? I mean, he's not communicating anything. He's not talking about unemployment. He's not talking about how he's going to improve the economy. He's not talking about those things. So that leads me to your question. Now, the Liberian people are left holding the bag because these guys are bickering among themselves so much. So now, have you seen any press release regarding the wave or at least the allegations of racialistic murders going on across the country? The opposition is not speaking about that. So if the opposition is not talking about the issues, right, that is relevant to the lives of the people, then what is the use of the opposition? The opposition is the government in waiting. You don't wait to get to the executive mansion before you start to implement those things. The opposition should show us now what they're going to do when they get there in 2023, but you don't see it. You don't see them talking about unemployment. You don't see them talking about price hikes. You don't see them talking about infrastructure development. You don't see them talking about the wave of racialistic killing, the allegations against government officials and so on and so forth. So now what you have is someone is saying, well, he's not rich. I'm richer than he. Like, what is it? This is playground stuff. This is playground stuff. So I am really disheartened. I am sad for Liberia. This is a country where I was born. I love Liberia. But today, this time, this period, this critical moment in Liberian history, I'm very sad because you have an incumbent who really doesn't know what he's doing, okay? He doesn't know what he's doing, and there are people like Mr. Coney who continue to support him, right? But now you're supposed to have an alternative to this incumbent, but these guys are behaving like kids, and now what are we doing? So again, to answer your question, the Liberian people should really be disappointed in what is going on. So what is the alternative? The alternative is, right, to have individuals who are committed to true democracy, to true change. You're not going to have that because they're not going to get the opportunity to get to where Mr. Cummings got to because he's wealthy. They're not going to have the opportunity to get to where Mr. Ure is because he's, wealthy from what we hear. They're not going to get the opportunity to get to where JNB is because, as Mr. Ure tells us, those who are supposed to be president, you have to work in government before you become president. Like, what kind of logic is this? You have to be a former government official to be eligible before you can become a president. Like, that should be some kind of qualification. That should be some kind of criteria. That should be a plus for you. I mean, I don't understand that. So these are the things that are going on. And I think that the Liberian people should be outraged. But like Dr. Dunn said, he said that every people get the government that they deserve. So maybe the Liberian people deserve this government they have now. And maybe they are also going to deserve the next government if they don't make the right decision. But this is a disappointing moment in Liberia for sure.
Thank you. Let's hear from Mr. Coney, and then we can go for a break, and after that, take some comments. Mr. Coney.
What you're hearing, everything you're hearing, is the indictment of the intelligentsia that I've always made on this show. The failure of the intelligentsia and their arrogance. And, when you question their failure, they put you in a box that you are anti-education. No one is anti-education. But I believe that the purpose of education is to solve society's problem. So if you are educated, if you are highly socialized, if you have all of these things, and you can bring your experiences, your qualifications, everything to solve the problem of ordinary people, and then when the ordinary people ask you, what your book now do for us? And then in your arrogance, you tell them, say, you hate book. This is what we have in here. This is exactly what we have here. Bunch of highly educated individuals that's supposed to come together and provide an alternative for the Liberian people. They can't even come together. They all willing in deception. Look, when political parties come together, political parties are not social services agency. They come together for power. They come together for power. That will bring them together. Our people belong to political party to win power. They're not humanitarian organizations. So from the get-go, the leaders of the political parties that were coming together, one of the first things that they should have tackled is how are we going to select our leadership for the CPP? Instead of pushing it down the road as if to say they will never get there. You see, I'm happy that I celebrated my 60th birthday because I've seen this thing before. I saw the attempt to form a coalition against Charles Taylor at the time by the same Liberian intelligentsia. It was the intelligentsia one side and Mr. Taylor and his quote-unquote uneducated people one side. The intelligentsia could not come together. And we saw the result. I saw this thing again, let me back up, 1985. The intelligentsia again supposed to come together to face an autocratic leader. Guess what? They didn't come together until after the election and they formed something they call Grand Coalition. The election over. This is a failure of this particular elite. Yeah. And when we talk about them, they say you anti-education. And it offends me that they feel that they shouldn't even be questioned. They misrule our country.
Mr. Kune, you continue to create this new tribe called intelligentsia elite.
Don't mind him.
What is this? What is this? What is responsible for that? Is it book more people stupid? Is that what you think?
No, they think they are educated and the rest of the people are sped. So
and why do they think that way?
They cannot book the land, inform them that way. But let me go to my point. Let me go to my point. The point I'm making is.
What about a book you yourself learned, Mr. Kumi?
I'm in the intelligentsia elite, and I excluding myself.
Intelligentsia elite status in the CDC.
Yes,
please. How are you using the CDC?
I come in, whether I will reach there, let me learn, I will reach there. But listen.
We got a doctorate degree. Is he part of the intelligentsia elite?
Look, who?
Fake doctor.
You hear Sherry say, Joe, we are getting real. So, but let me tell you, let me make the larger point.
Yeah, leave this intelligentsia elite business.
No, that elite has suppressed our people for a long time. They need to be called out and exposed. But let me make the larger point. The political parties were coming together. All of them were aware in terms of political strength. The Unity Party was the strongest among them. They pretended that they were all equal. You see that the Liberian people pretense. They pretended that they were all equal. And they will create this level equality for everybody, and they start dreaming about all of these things. Now it reached a point, the Unity Party is exerting their dominance.
You hit the nail on the head, Baba.
Yeah, they exerting their dominance. And other people now are repelling that. This is what we have. Now contrasted to our propos. When we put our coalition together, there was a recognition that the CDC was the dominant party. No question about it. We established our dominance there and then. That the CDC will produce the presidential candidate. The rest of you two parties, you got vice president. You go working out who you bring as vice president. That's it. You know? But now, so for the first time, I will soon learn. For the first time in recent Liberian history, George Weah is the only person that put a coalition together in opposition to win elections. The elite can't do it. They can't do it. They will be fighting. In the end, this coalition will not hold. Mr. Cummings will get nothing in a collaboration. He will not even be vice president. And the question will be, why is he wasting his time? You see what they're already doing. Omer Boyka, political party nominating somebody. They go in the main living room, they endorse it. They even get a man to the party headquarters. You know? And these are the things. These are the people. They say we can't do something over and over and expect the same result. So, Dennis, unless people can be honest to themselves and admit the fact, they like I said, I don't know whether they implode you or whatever they're doing. They will continue. And in the end, just like the Liberian people never had the benefit of a good competition, we like competition. I always say the CDC want a very good competition. We want to beat a good opponent. Brazil is never happy when they beat Afghanistan. Brazil can be happy when they beat Italy. You bring your Italy or France. And then I will share my joy in that victory. The CDC will beat your Italy or your France. That's the point I keep making. I want democracy.
On that note,
Lifelong political leadership. Somebody get elected in one convention, a political leader, a continuum. Once a political leader, always a political leader. What kind of crap is that? Go to convention.
I learned long ago that political leader means lifetime standard bearer. But we take a short break. When we come back, we're going to read our comments.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Welcome back. Now, tell me if this is not the best panel in online television. You tell me. Paul Jala say wow, and this deserves a wow. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Let's take some comments here. The first one is Paul, who is wowed by the discussion. Darling Wall will say lifetime standard bearership is corruption in itself. George Dunbar is surprised that Cole is agreeing with the CDC Pape. Othello, now thank you, Mr. Cooney, for the true history of Liberia.
I keep telling you, Mr. Cooney is a debater. It's good.
Let me take a toss at your question. The Liberian people are left as pawns in the argument until the people are looked at as people and not pawns. We will continue to let them down. We need to put Liberians first. We need to understand that Monrovia is not Liberia. Then we shall start solving the problem. Miata Sterling says it is amazing that people turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to the wrong of the unity party maybe and the other party, and you laughing rather than call them out. This is wrong. ABC worked hard to put things right and bring CPP together. He's not going anywhere. Samuel, the problem in the CPP started when one party decided to use cash violence to take them to presidency. If only those guys would agree from the beginning on terms, it would have helped address the issues. I'm just picking some comments here. Ambassador Jimmy said the problem is Comey does not understand politics. And Wisa Colley has been making this point over and over, so let me put it on the screen. So bunch of CPP and COP people in the USA, so bunch lie COP people, lie men, Elizabeth, if you can read that. Okay, Arrowson, where Java say ANC pull out will be a leadership failure and inability to manage a few political parties.
Yep.
Isaac Goa Ellis coming is angel from heaven. Why did he come to the devil? Nonsense. After President Weah, Marina Jones said nobody is qualified to take Mama Liberia forward. You all, President Weah is not doing anything. Wait and see the next leader. Francis Wilson here said, once again, I agree with Mr. Cooney. Armstrong Colley, so true, I agree with Mr. Cooney. We Liberia never do anything right altogether. I'm looking for where they would disagree with this CDC Pape. Those are a few of the comments. We have a lot of comments here. So let's
well, we're not talking about CDC. Everybody tired talking about that today. No, nothing better.
Sam Wallow, the saying is you cannot talk your way out of a situation that you behave your way into. You must behave your way out of it and
Yep.
that would take at least a generation.
Precisely.
They're still talking about Mr. Cummings. Danny Phillip, Cummings has never worked in a public service position, so no one knows what he would do if he's exposed all of a sudden. $2 million in cash. No executive carding contact with cash in the CNN private sector. I'm not too clear on that one.
That is wow.
Yeah. Henrietta say, are the clean hands bringing on board clean hands or recruiting dirty hands from the dirty camp? Still on Mr. Cummings here. Is it President Weah who abandoned his executive mansion, or your Harvard University graduate who squandered all within 12 years? Be realistic, man, my man. Those are the questions. I want to bring back one question I want to ask here is I come back to Liberty Party. And the way I describe Liberty Party in this, first of all, we have always talked about this institution. There was a lifetime standard bearer, the late Bromsky, and since he passed, it's like nobody is prepared to take that mantle. There has been complete chaos in the Liberty Party, and now they are not feeling any candidate. But what they're doing, it looked like to me, is like, as I said, they are playing the pretty girl now. It's like, do all you can to get me, and so too much pressure or cash or whatever is running behind the Liberty Party. What should the role of the Liberty Party be in this case? It looked like Mr. ALP mind is made up, right? But it's the Liberty Party now that people are trying to say, okay, where does this party go?
Right.
Mr. Darros Dillon, the darling of the Liberty Party, or of the people, the proverbial light, has already endorsed Mr. Boakai. The chairman is another way. What we are hearing that Mr. Boakai has promised Yombli Kanga the bystander bearership, and so that's why they are turning that way. What is the LP doing here, Wade?
Let me make this very clear. I want to make two things very clear. Nobody in the CPP or outside of the CPP has given the Liberty Party a dime. The people who are out there promulgating that information, or should I say that misinformation, is intentional. Nobody has given anybody in the Liberty Party a dime. Secondly, Liberty Party has a very clearly defined process of how it makes decisions such as these. Decisions to support, decisions to collaborate, decisions to merge, all of these sorts of decisions are taken by the body at national convention. That body includes the executives across the country. The advisor council, the executive council, the counter structures all sit at the table and determine who to endorse, if to endorse. The decision on what Liberty Party will do will be taken at its convention. But even in the manner in which we will endorse a candidate, if we should reach that decision, there will be a determination on the basis of our endorsement. We're not just going to go out there and say, Cummings, Boakai, which one you want? No. The Liberty Party has a platform.
Right. But Wade, we saw that the chairman has been with Mr. Cummings in the mosques and everywhere. We suggest that he's leaning Cummings. We saw that A.B. Darros Dillon has openly endorsed JNB.
As far as I know, the only person that has done any open endorsement of any candidate from the Liberty Party is Darros Dillon.
Was that premature?
In my opinion, absolutely premature. As a matter of fact, it was not only premature, it was against a decision that we as a party had made. Dennis, you know how many times you, for example, have asked me to say, who am I supporting, who am I leaning? What has always been my response?
Is he going to be reprimanded for that, or you just let it go?
I will not bring Liberty Party internal disciplinary issues here. That's not what we said. But the point of the matter is, Liberty Party will make a decision that is aligned with the process outlined in its constitution. No other way will we make a decision. So anybody who wants to run now and go endorse somebody, let them go ahead. It has no bearing on the Liberty Party endorsement as an institution. We're not individuals.
It's beautifully
Right.
said.
So you're going to block vote?
No, we are not.
I'm teasing.
That's not what block voting means.
This is what we're saying. The specifics of who sits at the table to vote is outlined. Therefore, those people will also have a voice in how we arrive at the decision. We will have an opportunity to discuss it. We will have an opportunity to lobby each other. This is what we are supposed to do. But at the end of the day, every man or woman will go up and they will cast a vote for the candidate, and whoever the majority is going to carry the day. At the end of the day, before we even reach that point, we will make a determination whether or not to even endorse. People are looking at this from the standpoint of it will either be this or either be that. There are multiple paths that the Liberty Party can take.
Thank you.
But we'll not sit here and say that we will do this right now, because that is a decision that we'll make together as an institution.
Okay, we're inviting the Liberty Party to come here so we can talk all Liberty Party. There's a post here. How many of the counties in Liberia have access to your station and programs? And the person follow up. I suggest that you establish relaying stations in every county. This person should love FOL. So, and we have none. Okay, so we're looking for money to do that. Carl, you have something. You say you have proof of something, and just make.
So you were asking about the anti-competitive behavior.
Okay.
And the document, the framework, it's clearly written. There's some tenets in there that block competition. One of the versions that came out stated that, and in this bear the signature of all of the leaders of CPP, even the ones that do things and pretend that they don't, saying that all candidates should be present and visible or vocal or something like that.
No,
and that in of itself.
Oh, which section is that? Which section is that?
This is the first version. And let me tell you, when we say we had to blaze fire to get that removed. Because that was
is it in the final? Is it in the final document?
It was in the initial final document, right? So they had to go back to the drawing board.
You cannot say initial final.
Let me explain. They all signed it. Cummings signed it. Boycott. Listen.
No,
the chairman of the Unity Party at the time signed it. Yuri signed it. Everyone's signatures on it.
And there's a reason why that very document went back to the lawyers, because it had those tenets in there that were not legal. There's a reason why that document
was still there.
Right.
So I was trying to make a point.
Hold on, because
the point is the initial process that everybody agreed to was to keep the process closed to just those who were present.
Right. So this is the section you're talking about.
Yeah. So when let me get
and visible members of constituent political parties shall be recommended by.
So what ended up in the final document is what you're showing her right now. This is in the final document. So what if the original one, where we demanded that it be modified, they modified it. What ended up in the final document is what you see in section 10.11.3. Do you see that? That's what is there right now in the actual final document. That's the remnant of the initial intention.
Can you put that back on the screen?
But where is your final document?
This is the final document I sent you, Janice. This is the final document. This is the one we're operating under.
Right.
I'm looking at the final document right here, Jala. That's why I want to make sure.
And what's the date on the final document?
The date on the final document is
February.
April 20.
May 19, 2020.
Okay.
That is the document. That is a document that after the signing in April, after all of the hullabaloo.
So the document that Dennis has is dated May 19, 2020.
No, Cole, that's not what I put on the. Well, that's not what I put on the screen.
Okay, so what I just emailed you is a document that's dated May 19, 2020. That's what I emailed you.
Okay. And that clause is not in there. The May 19, 2020 document is a document I have right in front of me right now, and that clause is not in there.
And why should this? Why should there be so much confusion? Why is it not
I think she was
published?
trying to make a point. Let her, yeah,
I
allow
was
her to
trying to
make
make
a
a
point.
point,
Yeah,
but
go
you
ahead.
know.
Go ahead, Carl.
So I think I know, you know. So when, first of all, when they went to the table to create this document, they made sure that they sent people that they could control. They didn't want to send heretics or people who are independent thinkers or people who are not going to be controlled. If you look at the people that represented, with the exception of Yuri, who represented his party, it was much lower level people that went and sat at the table for the most part. The chairman for the Unity Party was an interim chairman. You had, you know, people that were not as experienced. So my point I was trying to make was they had a lot of elements in the document that were just horrid. When we saw the final signed document, that's when we all freaked out. The idea that these people signed off on something that was so terribly written and actually documented the idea that nobody else should compete for presidency except us was scary to me. And that was the first time I, as an individual, was taken aback and saying, oh my God, this is horrible. What we thought was supposed to happen isn't happening. It's not working. We're not picking the best of the best people to sit at the table and draft things and think things through. We don't have an adequate think tank. What we have is whoever people like and think they can control and influence. And this is not a good sign of leadership.
Yeah.
So the point I was making by bringing this up is that we expect Mr. Boykai, even Mr. Yuri, he has corporations. Mr. Cummings, we expect Numbly Kanga, who worked many, many years before becoming a senator. We expect these people to be at a place where they know how to scout the talent they need to complete a task. I know Wade Powell professionally. I know that Wade Powell, if she had been sitting at that table, the first thing is, or she would have been selecting who sits at that table, she would have looked for talent, people who she knows understand policy, or what else do we need? We need people who understand this, and there would have been better decisions made. We had a lot of amateurs making decisions that had no prior experience working in such a manner. That says a lot about the leadership. That says a lot about the leadership. The other thing is, there are 5 million Liberians living in Liberia. I think it's 6 million if you count those of us that don't live in Liberia. So, you know, out of that, I think there's a lot of people who are eligible to be president. And we're not giving an opportunity to our country to allow the cream to rise to the top. We are focused on who is present. And if you come in the door first, you get to close everyone else out. And that is the problem I have. I don't have any issue with Mr. Cummings. I definitely do not have any issue with Mr. Boykai. I don't know Mr. Yuri to have any issue with him. Numbly, I think, is one of the, she's cool. I like Numbly on a personal level. I've met her, hung out with her a few times, interacted with her. Very, very nice person. None of this conversation is personal. Okay. My issue is, and I will consistently say it, we have to open up the playing field. And the last point I'll make along these lines, to prove that the spirit that they initially wrote in and removed is what's carrying the CPP. They have consistently put up some of the worst candidates possible and supported some of the least qualified people ever. If you want to be president and you think you're going to be successful with, I'm not going to name their names. I don't want to insult anyone. But if you're going to
we're talking public. Go ahead.
If you think you're going to be successful by putting these people into office in the Senate and the House who are not competent, who are not capable, who are inexperienced, who don't understand anything. Being a representative or a senator is not an easy job. And if you're an agent of change, the people that you're going to promote, the people you're going to get in the rain for and beat drum for and tell the Liberian people, hey, I endorse this person, that person should be qualified. That person should be of the same spirit that you are.
Thank you, Cole.
You know, one last thing, I haven't seen that happen. I haven't seen that happen. And because I haven't seen that happen, because they've consistently put out these mediocre candidates, some of which I'm very glad didn't win, they're sabotaging the future president. Because if you have the first branch of government packed with incompetent people simply because you were looking for votes from their districts so that you could become president, you're not going to be effective when you win. Some of the problem George Weah is having right now, some of it is because of the legislature being incompetent.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you just joined us, this is Focus on Liberia Tough Talking Thursday, and we're talking about the CPP versus the CPP. Of course, if you have your opponent fighting, you're going to smile. So we're almost at the end of our program. We have not done the Tabata section yet, and guess what? We're getting right into it. But before we get that, we always like to play that Tabata song, but not today.
Hi, my name is Addie Tyler from Pennsylvania, and you're watching Focus on Liberia.
A nice touch.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do today is before you give us your closing comments at the end, we want to go to our Tabata session. And people still asking me, what Tabata means. I write nonsense. That's why it is. So we're going to go into that session. We're going to go around the room. Who's missing? Gabriel. So we're going to go around the room, starting with Mr. Kun. This time, only one Tabata that you've observed for the week. Mr. Kun, let's start with you.
Oh, that is always giving me so much gag orders. But anyway, I will comply. The Tabata for the week, to be honest with you, and it would be that Mr. Cummings, after sacrificing all of his children,
Sure.
starting with Jeremiah Salonta, starting with Ta Wamwe, starting with Simeon Freeman, sacrificing everybody along the road in the name of unity, in the name of us working together, for him to now walk out of the CCP process because now he see that his own political interest is in danger. I think it's one of the greatest Tabata in Liberian political history.
Wade?
That's a hard one to follow up. But anyway. What I see as the greatest Tabata over the last several weeks is the fact that people who publicly profess that their aim of organizing and being together is for the purpose of democracy that will ultimately benefit the country are the same people that through their actions, multiple actions, are demonstrating that they have no interest in democracy, and by demonstrating that they have no interest in the Liberian people's future. For me, that is the greatest Tabata. I am a member of the Liberty Party, thus a member of the CPP, and I will not stand for that in either of those organizations.
Thank you. Let's go to call. And before you come on call, I have a comedy I want to put on the board. That's from Mianta Herring. So she like how you say it. Go ahead. Why is
She
it
said, how I say what? I didn't read it, sorry.
He said she like how you say Tabata.
She want like
I second the motion.
All right, I will say it. So the greatest Tabata is, and this is actually not funny, after all of the women of Liberia pulled together, Wade and all pulled together for Senator Boto Kane, her aide was arrested for poaching innocent animals. No, but for poaching endangered species in the Gola rainforest. And this is the greatest habitat, because she was elevated to this position, and she had, I've never heard her speak, on politics, but because of women's solidarity, we all backed her, even though we knew that she was a bushmeat dealer, which usually means you're a poacher. And now that she's senator of Liberia, she still has not disassociated herself with the illegal poaching industry. I think that is the greatest habitat of this week.
Mr. Sharif?
Y'all laughing?
I don't know how I'm going to compose myself now. but okay, I'll try. Right. So I want to go regional. I want to look at ECOWAS. ECOWAS is a joke now. This ECOWAS is a joke. In relation to the issue in Guinea, so you have Alpha Conde, who was elected in, I believe, in 2010 for the first term, and then he won re-election, and then he changed the constitution last year to stay on for a third term. The opposition rose, and there was massive crackdown, and there was brutality and bloodshed, and he started to divide the Guinean population along tribal lines. And so ECOWAS went in, gave him a wink and a nod, and all of a sudden they were out of the country. And the opposition continued to suffer under his brutal rule. And now the military guys went in, he complied with them, right? So they arrested him. They didn't do anything to him. They just removed him from power, and they are going to put in a new dispensation. This is something ECOWAS should have done, but instead what they did, they condemned the coup, they imposed sanctions on Guinea. That is the biggest tabata of the month, and ECOWAS is a joke for that.
All right, before you come in, Gibra, Ambassador S. Jimmy said, my tabata is for Euro and Boaka to say they are accommodating Mr. Cummings in the CPP is complete tabata. Gibra, what's your tabata of the week, of the month?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think I will have to go with the issue, current crisis in Guinea.
No, you can't do that. Find your own. Go ahead, Mr. Carter.
Say that again? No, I the reason why I say that, because I will, I agree with Mohammed. It's stuff like that. You expect the ECOWAS to come in and be very stern with some president changing the constitution, but I don't think that actually happened. They actually became stern when he got overthrown. That's when they came in and put sanction on it. I think initially when this guy went in, changed the constitution, they should have been stern with him. I think they did go in there and warn him. They told him that this could actually lead to a coup. You could get your people, the citizen could rise up against you, right? But I think he may have, people like that, when they're in power, I think they become, they tune out everybody else. So I think he was in him, listening to himself. And I don't agree with the sanction that will impose upon him. I think, there should have been a better resolution than coming into just post sanction on the country just because they overthrew somebody. So I think I will leave it as that.
Thank you. And my tabata is this constant accusation of altering documents. Maybe I'm in America, so I don't understand it, but I don't see how a public document, let's say we have a document at work, we have it you have this on your website, you have it other places. How can one person just get up and alter that? I don't know if that happens only in Liberia. I've been away from there for some time now, but that's complete tabata for people to be talking about the document that is for an entire organization, right? Is it in somebody's pocket that you can alter and take it somewhere, or is it for public,
consumption that we all see it, we all know where it is, and so if we alter it, we know. So this accusation of altering document speaks to the real tabata that is going on, that people can even keep one document consistently. Where is the change management? Anyway, so that's the tabata I see. Let's now.
I want to say my tabata. I agree with the rest tabata.
So, thank you. And there's Frances said she don't like what I said. How I read her comment.
Oh.
Seattle Townsend said tabata, the corporal punishment in Liberian schools. And Seattle, we are coming with a show on Tuesday. We're going to have an attorney who is handling the case in Lakiri, and also an educator, and then another principal, another educator, to talk about corporal punishment in Liberian schools. Okay, Francis said, you killed my spirit to comment, because you read my comment backwards. I said for once, and you read once again. So she said, for once, I agree with Mr. Coney. So Francis, I remember the last time you said for once. So in the previous show. So,
typo. We'll leave it as typo.
So thank you so much for coming. This time we have just 5 minutes to close. So for 5 of you, 1 minute each, give me your closing comments. Let me start with Carl. 1 minute. Your closing comments.
I still believe in the CPP. I think people need to erase the arrogance and go back to the initial spirit that brought the CPP together. And I think that people, it's important for there to be people within an institution that will challenge it privately and publicly. I don't think that it's a Zobush or something that we need to be hiding, our thoughts and opinions. Politics is not a religion. It's not a cult. You're allowed to think, you're allowed to disagree, but as long as the goal, the end goal, which is not just about taking power, but improving the lives of Liberian people. So that I do disagree with Mr. Cooney on. Political parties form around ideological bases that are created to improve the country. And CPP was created to improve the country, not just to take power. So once we get back to that, we're in shape.
Mr.
And
Sharif,
that's all we want.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sharif, your last comment.
So every election is about the future, not the past. It is incumbent upon the opposition to show us what they're going to do differently from this administration. So what they are going to do will determine how people will vote, hopefully. Nobody right now is talking about the presidential term of office. Presidential term of office is too long. 6 years is too long. The term of office for the senator, 9 years is too long. 6 years for representative is too long. This is too long. And the wage scale is uneven, it's unbalanced. The rich people now are found in government. Government job is where people go to make a living. This is a conduit out of poverty. It shouldn't be that way. Government job needs to be deprioritized. The public sector needs to be deprioritized, as weird as that sounds. This is what's going to make Liberia a great nation, right? So all of these things put together, right? When you deprioritize the public sector, when you prioritize business, small businesses, the private sector and whatnot, and encourage kids to go to school, make investment in education, investment in, investment in small business growth and all of that, innovation, all of that would make Liberia a great nation. As it is now, nobody is talking about that. Even Mr. Cummings, who I think is better prepared than all of the candidates in the field, is not even communicating his vision and all of the things that he has done in the corporate world. So that to me is very, very, very concerning, that we're not going to see anything different in 2023. Even if these guys win, it's going to be the same old, and that is sad.
Thank you. Few more tabata here before we close. My tabata is for Liberia to leave ECOWAS and set an example, telling them that ECOWAS need do more and be objective, not playing with their citizens' lives. And of course, there's a request here that I should ask you to say tabata one more time.
Y'all better leave me alone.
Prince Prince William Kula Janese, the great tabata is for ALP and UP to not pay the membership dues in the CPP, but want to lead. So if people don't pay their dues, why you don't use your, your rules and maybe kick them out or something?
That is it for the sake of peace.
Tell Sis Miata I'm reporting her to Tata Miata Family for provoking me.
Kabila Janet crying for justice when he facilitated 250,000 murder. That was no justice. A complete quarter of the week. I think it's making reference to Kabila Janet being part of rebels or something like that.
You forced to read everything, Dennis?
No, I mean, we read some. Mr. Kuni, your tabata, Mr. Carter. Go ahead.
We're not tabata anymore, I hope. I think where I want to leave this is on the entire CPP framework. I know initially.
You having trouble with your connection there?
He basically wanted to say coming to president.
I know what. No, that's not what I'm saying. See, Ko is taking away my time. I know what they came together to do, right? And you're supposed to set timeline and deliverables. If you're meeting those deliverables, you stay on track. If you're not going to meet that, you're going against one of the biggest political party. Believe it or not, whether we want to accept it, the CDC, they have kids that are people that they have the body, right? You have to give yourself time to have a candidate that you're going to feel to run to run your campaign. You cannot be 2.5 years away and you're still fighting within yourself. You figure out what you're going to do. If you're going to merge and present a candidate and put an economic policy together and let that candidate continue to articulate that up to the election time. If you're not going to split up and go your separate way, then continue this. If you continue this infighting for another 1.5 years, you won't have time enough to campaign or to build a better grassroots to be able to go against the CDC. So my end would be that the CPP think about what they want to do and get behind one candidate. If not, they should go their separate way and feel their different respective candidates.
The framework said by December they should have the standard bearer. I don't know where we will.
That is going to happen, and this is why I believe that whole sticking together is not going to work. Even though that would be the ideal thing.
You want Cummings to move. You don't want Buakai to move, but that's another story. Let me go to Mr. Okuni for your closing comments.
Well, look, Dennis, what Liberians are witnessing is another tragic failure of the intelligentsia elite.
Oh God!
Oh my God!
I mean, it is stunning. It is stunning that a group of quote-unquote very accomplished people that say they want to provide an alternative vision for the country cannot even come together on the basis of a simple document. That is really tragic. There is no better vision that is being communicated. They're not creating the contrast with the developmental programs of the president, be it rural housing, be it electricity, be it education. We're not hearing any of those contrasts. What we're hearing is this bickering as to who would be big shot, who would not be big shot. And I guarantee you, this bickering will continue. It's not ending next week. It's not ending next month. We can wait for the ultimate fallout, but there will be a fallout. In the meantime, the Liberian people will see the deception. They will recognize the failure of this elite that have misruled them for decades. And they will make the decision to continue with grassroots governance. This experiment at grassroots governance will be institutionalized in our country because, again, the elite, all they know is to bigger, to throw book around, book that has not solved any problem. And so, like I said, in politics, if your opponent is tearing himself apart, all you got to do is to just step aside and watch. We are watching.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Watching. The first round victory is loading, and we are excited about it.
Yeah. Thank you. And if you were looking for Tabata of the week. Please don't count that one as one because
That is the biggest avatar.
Exactly.
Of the decade.
At
Well,
least
yeah,
we can have
all
divergent views. Nobody can disagree with Weah CDC. That's totalitarianism.
thank you so much for the healthy discussion tonight. And
I didn't have my final words, Dennis.
I thought you
yeah.
were. Oh,
She
I'm
hasn't.
sorry.
You want exclude me for the process yet now?
No.
especially after I finish making a one-round victory
Yeah.
prediction, you gotta talk.
Why go ahead, drop the bomb.
Go ahead, Wally.
Listen, posterity is going to judge each and every one of us, and at the end of the day, we have to be able to live with our consciences, to be able to say that we did the best that we could, even in success or failure. I am urging all of my colleagues on the various executive committees of the various political parties within the CPP. There's a reason why you were put in that position. You were not put there just to have a political leader pull you by the nose and tell you what you're supposed to do or what you're not supposed to do. We're adults. If we say we have this country at heart, then we should be acting in the interest of the country, not in the interest of a political leader, not in the interest of a party, in the interest of the country. And if we should want to continue, if some of us should want to continue behaving in that manner, there are some of us who will continue to stand up against that and stand up for what is right.
Yep.
Some of us stayed out of this political space for a very long time because it was so toxic. When you make a decision to enter in a political space, you must be ready for it to cost your mind, your pie, your whole generation, because that's what's known. But we stayed out for a very long time, and we recognize, I recognize I could not stay out and still want to point fingers and judge. And say, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. If you're wanting to point fingers, you're either a part of the problem or you're a part of the solution, right? But in this journey, we must be able to, at the end of the day, say that we stood on the side of Liberia. We stood on the side of democracy. We stood on the side of real transformative change. Not change for hope, not change for bodies, but change for the way of life for our Liberian people. So let's start acting like it. Because otherwise, we give people like Kune the platform to be able to come here and after us. We're doing this. So let's stop doing this. Let's put the egos aside. Let's put the political ambitions aside, the personal ambitions aside. Not put it aside, but let's make it secondary. Let's make democracy in Liberia primary.
Thank you. And it was not intentional, but that it makes you have the last word, so that was good.
I appreciate that.
On that note, I want to say thank you so much for watching, and want to thank our panelists for always being the best panel in online television. Until then, on behalf of all of us here at Focus on Liberia, my name is Dennis Jazz saying good night, ending with the song that says, whether you want the CPP to break up, or you want it to hold together, or you don't think it's going to hold, whether you support the president or the opposition, what matters is we are all Liberians, and we must do whatever it takes to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Good night, and God bless you. We are all Liberians.
We are
everybody.
Liberia is our home. Liberia people. Liberia.